Whispers in the Dark, Part 1. Emma believed in love. She believed in the quiet moments, the way his fingers traced patterns on her skin, the warmth of his voice in the morning, the promises whispered in the dark. For 7 years, she had been with Daniel, the man she thought she would grow old with. Their love wasn't flashy or dramatic, it was steady, built on trust, the kind that made her feel safe. Until one night, that trust shattered. It started with a whisper. Not from Daniel, but from his phone. A soft ping in the silence of their bedroom. A message he didn't hear because he was deep asleep beside her. Emma wasn't the jealous type. She never checked his phone, never questioned his loyalty. But something about the way the screen glowed in the dark, the way her name wasn't the one lighting it up, made her stomach twist. Curiosity won. She reached over, her hands trembling as she tapped the screen. Unknown number, I miss you. Can't stop thinking about last night. Red heart. Her world tilted. She read the message again, her breath catching in her throat. Her hands felt cold, her heart pounding so loudly she thought it might wake him. She turned to Daniel, watching the rise and fall of his chest. Had he always been this much of a stranger? Had she just never noticed? Emma could have woken him up, demanded the truth, screamed, cried, but she didn't. Instead, she slowly placed the phone back down, took a deep breath, and made a decision. She wasn't going to fall apart. She was going to find out everything. Whispers in the Dark, Part 2. Emma didn't sleep that night. She lay beside Daniel, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. Who was the woman messaging him? How long had this been going on? How many times had he come home to her after being with someone else? By morning, she had a plan. Step 1, the shadow game. Emma didn't confront Daniel right away. Instead, she became a ghost in her own life, watching, listening, collecting pieces of the truth without letting him know she was onto him. She paid attention to his habits. The extra time in the shower. The sudden need to work late. The way he kept his phone face down, flinching whenever it buzzed. But the real confirmation came 3 days later, when she finally checked his phone again, this time, while he was in the shower. The messages were endless. Unknown number, I can't wait to see you tonight. Daniel, me too. I've missed you so much. Unknown number, what are you going to tell her? Daniel, soon. She has no idea. Emma's blood ran cold. He wasn't just cheating. He was planning to leave her. Whispers in the Dark, Part 3. Emma's hands shook as she locked Daniel's phone and placed it back exactly where she found it. She has no idea. That's what he thought. But now, she did. And she wasn't going to let him walk away so easily. Step 2, the long game. Emma didn't cry. She didn't scream. Instead, she played the role of a loving, clueless wife perfectly. She kissed Daniel goodbye in the mornings. She sent him sweet texts throughout the day. She smiled when he lied to her face. Because if he wanted to play a game, she would win. The first thing she did was track his location. Daniel wasn't tech-savvy, and he had no idea that their shared family account still had his phone's GPS connected. That night, when he told her he was working late, Emma watched as his location popped up at an unfamiliar address. A luxury apartment building. She took a screenshot. The next morning, she did something even better, she followed him. The other woman. It was raining when Emma parked her car across the street from the apartment building. She watched as Daniel stepped out of his car, checked his phone, and walked inside. 2 minutes later, a woman appeared at the entrance. Blonde. Tall. Younger than Emma. She threw her arms around Daniel, and he kissed her like he meant it. Emma's grip on the steering wheel tightened. So this is her. She didn't storm out of the car. She didn't cause a scene. Instead, she took out her phone, zoomed in, and clicked. One picture. Then another. And another. By the time Daniel walked inside with his mistress, Emma had all the evidence she needed. But she wasn't done yet. No, she was just getting started. Whispers in the Dark, Part 4. Emma stared at the photos on her phone, her heartbeat steady. Daniel had no idea his lies were unraveling. No idea that she wasn't the quiet, forgiving wife he thought she was. No idea that by the time she was done, he would regret ever thinking she was clueless. Step 3. The perfect trap. Emma didn't just want to catch Daniel, she wanted to destroy the perfect little world he had built behind her back. She spent the next week gathering everything she needed. Red triangle pointed down bank statements. He had been using their joint account to take his mistress out to expensive dinners. Pathetic. Red triangle pointed down emails. So, he was planning a trip to Paris with her? Interesting, Emma had always wanted to go. Red triangle pointed down more messages. He had told the other woman that Emma was cold and distant? Oh, he had no idea what cold really was. And then, when she had enough to ruin him, she planned her final move. The unraveling. Emma waited until their anniversary. Daniel came home that evening, holding a bouquet of flowers, wearing his best fake smile. Happy anniversary, babe. Emma smiled back, playing her role one last time. I planned something special for us. His face lit up. Yeah? She nodded and handed him an envelope. Open it. Daniel, thinking it was something sweet, tore it open, only for his face to drain of color as he pulled out printed screenshots of every message, every transaction, every lie. The photos of him and his mistress were right on top. Silence. Then, Emma. I can explain. She cut him off with a laugh. Oh, I'd love to hear it. But first, maybe she should explain. She pointed to the doorway. Daniel turned. And there, standing in the entrance of their home, was the other woman. Emma had sent her an invitation earlier that day, telling her the truth about their relationship. The woman looked between them, realization dawning in her eyes. You told me you were leaving her. Daniel was trapped. His lies had nowhere to hide. Emma picked up her suitcase, already packed, and walked past him, pausing just long enough to whisper, "Enjoy cleaning up your mess." Then, without looking back, she walked out of the house, and out of his life forever. Epilogue, The Best Revenge. 3 months later, Emma was sitting at a Parisian cafe, sipping the finest espresso, watching the Eiffel Tower sparkle in the distance. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Daniel. Emma, I messed up. Please, can we talk? She smiled, blocked the number, and took another sip of her coffee. She didn't need to reply. Her silence was the only answer he deserved. Whispers in the Dark, Final Chapter. Daniel stood frozen, his face pale as Emma walked past him, suitcase in hand. The other woman, his mistress, looked at him with wide, betrayed eyes. You told me you were leaving her. Emma didn't stop walking. She didn't need to hear his excuses. Didn't need to see him scramble to fix the mess he had created. She had already won. 3 months later. The sun kissed her skin as she leaned back in her chair, the scent of fresh espresso mixing with the cool Parisian breeze. Emma had always wanted to come here. Funny how Daniel had planned a trip to Paris with his mistress. Now, she was the one living the dream. And he? Last she heard, his life was in ruins. Red triangle pointed down his mistress had dumped him the moment she realized he was a liar. Red triangle pointed down his finances were in shambles. Emma had taken every penny that was legally hers before walking away. Red triangle pointed down his reputation. Destroyed. Her phone buzzed. A message. From an unknown number. She already knew who it was. Daniel, Emma, I messed up. Please, can we talk? Emma stared at the message for a moment. Then, with a small smirk, she deleted it. No response. No second chances. Her silence was the only answer he deserved. As she raised her coffee cup to her lips, a waiter approached, setting down a delicate dessert in front of her. Anything else, madam? Emma smiled. No, she said, taking a bite of the richest, most decadent chocolate she had ever tasted. I have everything I need. Fire the end. Smirking face sparkles.